live stream. So today's live stream is called Streamline to Succeed, Mastering Workflow Implementation. So I know the majority of the live streams that I usually do is more geared towards career management, but that's only one side of my business. The other side of my business is helping small business owners develop their processes and their procedures to help them ultimately save money or make money. And I've been getting a lot of new business, which I'm grateful for. And a lot of the new business that I've gotten is that I'm getting, I should say, is more geared towards individuals that have no idea, no understanding about even just the basics of policy and procedure development. Even more importantly, how business can actually assess what they actually need to do in order to get them to the point of actually defining what their current processes look like. Because regardless if you have it written down or not, you have some sort of process. The process may not be working to the best of your business's ability, but you are doing something. And most times, if you are in your business and if you are doing things over and over and over again and expecting the same results, but you get a different result based off of the same thing that you're doing over and over again, that may be a clear indication that you need some sort of process, some sort of procedure actually out of your head and written down. Um, One of the hidden gems that I tell a lot of business owners is, especially business owners who want to scale, right? We are in a society where it's sexy to scale, and just saying that you are a business owner and you are growing, that's a good thing, right? Because as you grow or you onboard people, you have more territory to take on, you have more products you want to put out. Whatever your business is, it is growing. It can be at a slow rate or a rapid rate, but 9 times out of 10, especially when it comes to onboarding, a good 75% of people that are onboarded to a business usually quit. And the reason why they quit is because they don't have a sense of direction, they don't have instructions, they don't have any type of documentation on paper that they can actually refer to while they're doing their training, and even more importantly, while they're executing their job. When it comes to the big wigs like a Starbucks or a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A, they've boiled down their SOPs to be very simple that a slug can actually do the job. And there's nothing taken away from the people that are working there, but you have to make your procedure so simple that anybody can pick it up and do it, whether it's their first time looking at it or if it's something that they've been doing for a sufficient amount of time. And that's one of the key reasons why documentation is important. Is documentation exciting? Is documentation and processes, is it something that you would want to put on social media? More than likely not. But the overall effectiveness of your business will be determined based off of how crisp your documentation is, how easy it is, and even more importantly, how easy it is for someone to follow, right? So, what I want to do in this 3-part training series, so this is not just going to be a one shot, one deal. I'm going to do this training over the course of the next 3 days, is to give you a 6-point breakdown on actually how to implement an effective workflow, regardless if this is your first time even learning workflows or if you are a seasoned veteran. If you are a seasoned veteran and you are looking at this live stream, please put it down in the comments below because you can understand what I'm about to talk about. And one of the things that I'm learning is people, especially my viewers, which I'm so grateful for, you guys are highly visible, right? So I can stand here all day letting you know the ins and outs of anything that I'm trying to do, anything that I'm trying to teach you. But I think it's more effective for you actually to see a visual of what I'm doing. So it could be to the left of me or it could be the right of me, but there's an image of an effective workflow. In actuality, these are the 6 steps that I take the majority of my clients on when it comes to creating an overall workflow, right? And it is very, very important that you follow these 6 high-level steps to the T. You don't want to jump from 1 to 4, from 3 to 6. You want to make sure that you take a step by step on each sub process to get you to the point where you have an effective workflow. And what you are looking at, I've done this workflow for transportation companies, for actual authors, for restaurant owners, any business that you can think of, I've worked with and took them from step 1 to step 6, right? So what I'm going to do is not going to go into grave detail for each of them, but I'm going to talk about the first two during this first session, right? And just as a high level, the first two are one, documenting your existing process. And once again, even if you don't have anything documented, if you are conducting some sort of activity in your business, it's a sort of process to get to a certain goal, right? So we're going to talk about documenting your existing process and also identify areas of improvement. These two critical steps is like the 1-2 because it pulls back the hood of your business to kind of see how effective or, and not to knock anybody, how defective your business is, right? Especially for individuals, if you're getting a lot of complaints based off your product or your overall service, you may not have a step-by-step document that will get you to the same goal, the same result each and every time. It gets to the point where you can, if you lock this overall process down on how to create an effective workflow, how to create an effective process, this could potentially double, triple, or quadruple your revenue in your business, right? So this is very important. This is the area that I also teach in, but even more importantly, this is what I have in my business also. So I'm just not talking the talk. I'm actually employing this in my business and continue to employ it in my business because every time that I go through a particular process in my business, even if it does give me the same predictable result at the end of the day, still want to figure out how to improve my overall process, which is in actuality step 6. But today, once again, we're going to start with the first 2 steps. So the first step is documenting your existing process. And this is where the rubber meets the road. Usually when I work with a client, I tell them uh, what are the PPAs, or for people that do not know what that is, what are the profit producing activities in your business? Any profit producing activity that is in your business should be documented. And another reason why documentation is so important, and I kind of touched on this before, if you are a one person shop, but you've gotten to the point where you're starting to, business is starting to pick up to the point where you actually need to bring on someone, the turnaround rate on how you can train them is 5 to 10 times faster when you have everything documented, as opposed to you're trying to take the information that's out your head and actually explain it to the person that you are training. Trust me, they may not say it, but if you show up in a manner where you have your processes or the steps you take to succeed in your business documented, the handoff will be a lot easier, right? But the overall gist of documenting your existing process ultimately is understanding the current workflow, understanding the activities that you take to get the result that you need to get paid, in a sense. For example, what there's a process in order to how you order your food or how you take orders at McDonald's. There's a process on how you cook the fries, you cook the hamburger. Even in most instances, the ice cream machine is broken. Even the process on how you make the ice cream is fully documented from the beginning to the end, because McDonald's looks at it from the perspective of that person that is taking the order eventually could be the person that's on the fries, or they may have to take the job on of as doing the fries, or they may have to take the job on how to make the ice cream or make the shakes because it moves so fast. So you want to make sure that you have documentation that clearly states the steps that you need to take for success, right? Usually, when I work with small business owners for the first time, no harm, no foul, everything is up here, right? And on one side of the coin, it's okay that everything is up here, but what happens if it gets to the point where you hit your head and you forget everything? Your business will go under, or it will be a lot harder to transfer that overall knowledge from one person to the next. However, if you had that information documented, and trust me, documentation does not, especially for business owners that are just starting this process, documentation could be you just writing it down on a sheet of paper, right? When you have it typed out and ready to go on your company's letterhead, yeah, it looks great, but I don't want you to put the cart before the horse. The main gist of the first step is to sit down with a notebook and say, okay, what do I do? I create t-shirts. Okay. So if I create t-shirts, what is that overall process? What's step one? Step one is I turn on the t-shirt machine so it can warm up or whatever it may be. Step two is I take out, the shirts by size or the shirts that I need to make for that particular day. Step three, I take the emblem, or I forgot what it's called, the iron on, or whatever it is that you actually put on the shirt. I need to take X amount of irons on and put it on the table. Even though it may sound ridiculous as you're going through this process, trust me, the necessary steps, the granular steps that you are taking and you're writing down is very much necessary, because you have to look at it from the perspective of you giving this, ultimately, you giving this off to someone so they know step by step on exactly what they need to do to get to the end goal, right? And a process could be 5 steps, it can be 30 steps. You want to make sure that every step that you take, right? I forgot what song that was, but every step that you take, it is clearly written down so you know for a fact from the very start of the process to get to the goal and to the very end, it is documented, right? Once you went through the first stage, go through it again. Clearly, when I work with my clients, I tell them when you write down the processes, write it down 3 times. And I guarantee you, during those 3 times, you are going to have additional pieces of information that you did not have the first time that you've written it out. That's okay, because as your mind is walking through the process, it may not catch everything initially, which is totally fine. But after that third time, you may have things on that sheet of paper that are the same, but I guarantee you there will be additional steps that you initially have missed that first time or that second time. So by the time you hit that third time writing everything down, you clearly have a step by step. Once again, whether it can be 5 steps, 30 steps, 50 steps, you have a step by step process on what you need to do to create that goal, right? Usually that first time is relatively the hardest because you may second guess yourself, or you just may come to the understanding that this is a silly process. Yes, it could be silly, specifically writing down the granular steps that you need to take to get something done, but you also have to look at it from the mindset of creating this document. Of course, it's initially about you because you're taking it out of your head and putting it on a sheet of paper that eventually will get to a formalized standard operating procedure. You also have to look at your current or your future employees that will benefit for this. And even more importantly, as you continue to grow, the silly step-by-step granular documentation that you're writing down right now will ultimately help speed up the overall process as you begin to grow even more. Because I hope and I pray that this happens to you. But what happens if your business explodes and you need to hire 5 to 10 people? It happens every single day. Are you ready for that overall growth, right? Growth is not just having the opportunity to make more money, but your infrastructure, aka the processes that you have in place, need to be in place so you know for a fact that regardless if it's the first person that's being hired or the 30th, you have a foolproof step by step documentation to get to that overall goal. So once again, the first step in implementing an effective workflow, which is probably the most important, is document your overall existing process. Once again, as a strategy, as you are writing it down on your notebook, write that process out 3 times. Specifically, write it out 3 times at 3 different occasions. For example, write the process the first time writing the process out, write it out in the morning, right? The second time you write out that same process, write it out in the afternoon, because I guarantee you, as your mind continues to start spooling, you are going to add additional stuff, additional steps that you missed the first time. And then the third time, you may not have to do it at night, or you may have to do it the next day. But once you are done going through the process of writing out and initially documenting the process, I guarantee you, you will have a thorough step-by-step process that third time, right? So that's something that you can clearly start doing right now. So after you document the existing process, and it doesn't have to be perfect, let me also say that the next thing you want to do is identify areas of improvement, right? Um, Areas of improvement is very important because workflows and processes and procedures are living documents, right? It's not a one stop, one shot type situation. It's not over with once you document what you have on the table. There's always things that you can add, there's always things that you can improve on based off of your business, especially if you are looking to grow and make more money. You may be in a situation where you may be capped based off of the fact of the amount of donuts that you make um, in a day. And the reason why you are capped is because you are the person that's making the donuts. You are only one person and you've mastered that process. But what happens if you want to get to the point that you want to bring somebody else in, which is a area of improvement, right? Because not only are you improving your one stream of production, you're bringing in an additional person or whatever the amount of people that you want to bring in, you are increasing that overall workflow based off of bringing in more people. So, for example, if you are a one stop shop and your capacity is 50 donuts, and you teach and you create a process on how you create those 50 donuts, and you hire 2 more people, you just tripled your overall production because you just basically split yourself. Well, you tripled yourself based off of production, because as they're following this process, they are doing exactly what you do to create those 50 donuts. So now, instead of you creating those 50 donuts with you and 2 other people, you are creating 150 donuts a day, which eventually hopefully will triple your revenue, because you have more people creating the same type of donuts to the T than you would individually. But also, as you look at the documented process, you want to ask yourself 2 questions. How can I get this job done faster? And how can I produce more? Those 2 questions are the premise of your identify areas of improvement. Let me say that again. So, when you want to identify areas of improvement, you want to ask yourself 2 questions. How can I get to my goal based off of the process faster? And even more importantly, I just said it, I just forgot. How can I get more done faster, which eventually will help me make more money? That is very key, because as you continue to grow, as you continue to scale, you always want to figure out ways to improve your business. And in some instances, improving your business is actually removing yourself from that day-to-day process. And usually when I tell people that, it's a culture shock, because if it's your business, it's your baby, and you want to be the person that's in their inner workings. Totally understandable, but you will not be able to grow if you, as the business owner, does not take a step back and figure out what you can do to work, what is it, on your business, and not specifically work in your business, right? It's okay as you start your business to be the individual that's working day to day, grinding it out, and you're doing everything. But a golden rule, when you want one of the golden rules on why you want to create effective workflows is you want to start to remove yourself out of those particular things, especially if you are the owner. I'm pretty sure as the owner, you have more higher level things that you need to do as opposed to the day to day, right? You want to have an overview of the day to day, but if you can hire people that are in some instances more talented than you in that particular space, and you provide them with the documentation that they need to complete the goal, that creates more revenue, more opportunity for you, and it eliminates those day-to-day jobs, right? So areas of improvement also could be based off of what are the certain challenges or problems that you currently have in your business. And regardless if you are just starting your business, you've been in business for 10 years, if you've been in business for 65 years, every business that you come across has problems and has challenges. I don't care if it's the McDonald's, the Starbucks, the Chick-fil-A's, regardless. You do not want to think that these scalable businesses and these businesses that are making hundreds of millions of dollars don't have problems also. You may have operations problems, production problems, staffing problems, which all boils down to having an effective workflow to make sure that you have a tangible, repeatable result, right? So as you are looking at what you have currently written down based off of that process, then you start to ask yourself, how can I get this done uh, faster? And what are other areas of improvement or what other challenges that I need to solve in order to get this job done? You'll start to come up with other ideas on how you can improve that particular workflow, regardless if it's how do you want to get more leads, how do you want to improve the customer experience, how do you want to eliminate certain overhead? These are certain questions that, well, these are certain things will start to pop out on where you would want to improve your overall workflows, which is not a bad thing. A lot of times when people get to step two and they've identified some certain challenges in their business or they've identified some areas of improvement, they start to feel bad. That's natural, but at the same time, you have to look at it from the perspective, even if your business is not at the posture from the operation standpoint the way you want it to be, you now have the opportunity to study what you have written, right? Because once again, you've gotten it out of your head, and now, at the very least, on a sheet of paper. And now you want to ask yourself, based off of these steps, what can I do to improve what I'm doing to get a better result, right? No harm, no foul. But at the same time, as a business owner, and I thought this also, we think that our business is perfect. No business is perfect. That's why they hire individuals like myself and other operational professionals to help come in and figure out better ways to get the job done, right? Which is not a problem because you always want to continue to improve. You always want to have a pulse on your business and say, what can I do better? How can I serve my customer better? Which ultimately can help you save money or make more money, right? So, like I said, we are about 25 minutes in. So, once again, this is a three-part series, and I specifically wanted to touch on the first two areas just to start out with when it comes to implementing effective workflows. Once again, if you are a business owner and you have certain activities in your business that creates a tangible result, you would need to get those step-by-step things that you do out of your head and on a sheet of paper, right? That's key. You can, because as business owners, you will never be able to grow if you initially hold how you get stuff done, right? Regardless of who you are or what you do in the business, it needs to be documented because there's always somebody better that can potentially do that job. No harm, no foul. I'm not the best person in my business based off of certain things, but I hire certain people and give them the steps that I need to create a tangible result. and they go beyond the call of duty, which I'm so grateful for, because once I give them that task and they know exactly what to do, and actually in some instances they come back to me and say, hey Eric, here are some areas of improvement that we've already implemented to increase production by X amount of percent. I love to hear that, because I know for a fact that even though I understand processes, they may see it at a different perspective because they are the ones doing the job every single day. But if I didn't get the process out of my head and on a sheet of paper, I wouldn't have been able to give it to someone else and they can take it to another level, right? So it's more importantly, document it, get it out of your head and get it on a sheet of paper. And then the second piece is, after you get it on a sheet of paper, identify the areas on where you think you can improve. And then also, let me say this, one of the best ways and some of the best people that you can go to in order to improve what you're trying to do is reach out to your previous clients. What's the user experience? What are some things that they would have liked to see for their experience to go from a 9 to a 10 or 3 to a 7 or whatever the case may be? If you are not consistently asking for feedback from your customers on how to make their experience or the overall process, regardless of the business that you are in, you are putting yourself at a deficit. So, of course, even though you're looking at your process and saying, okay, we can do X, Y, and Z, reach out to your current and uh, past clients and ask them, thank you for your business. We definitely appreciate it, but we want to improve what we are doing. In your opinion, what are some ways that we could increase our overall, well, excuse me, enhance our overall productivity and serve you better? I guarantee you'll get some great feedback that you never would have thought of, right? So I wanted to stop there. Tomorrow I will touch on steps 3 and step 4, which is designing an ideal workflow. That is specifically for people that have not have a workflow, but once again, you still have your what you initially do and some areas of improvement. Step 3 will give you a process on how to incorporate that into your new process. And step 4 is involve your team, right? Even if you are a solopreneur, which is not a problem, reach out to other business owners that you trust. Or I just gave you this example involving your team, and I'll touch on this a little bit more in tomorrow's live stream. Involving your team, aka your past customers, they'll give you feedback that you never even thought of that can take your business to the next level, right? So, once again, thank you guys for your time, effort, and energy. If you are on LinkedIn, please leave a comment on LinkedIn. And if you had any questions, comments, concerns based off of anything that I talked about of the first 2 steps of implementing this effective workflow, and if there's anything that you wanted me to dig a little bit deeper on, and before I get into step 3 and step 4 tomorrow, I have no problem for that. Please put it in the comments. Also do that for YouTube. I need the feedback. I'm looking to figure out ways on how I can implement this a little bit better, but definitely give me feedback so I can figure out ways so I can serve you at an even higher level. So once again, this is Eric B. Horn. Thank you guys for your time. I will talk to you guys tomorrow.